All right, guys, moving forward with our rocker arm deal. I told you guys I was trying to achieve a pattern, which also translates to rocker arm geometry. And in the olds world, there's a lot of talk about the rocker arm geometry, and there's a lot of talk out there about the perfect valve stem pattern. Well, after some research, and I found a really good article, which I'm going to drop the link on the description of the video, so you guys can go and check it out for yourselves. So what I found is that to achieve good valve train geometry, you essentially want this imaginary line between the center of the roller and the fulcrum here. On the roller, this axis, you want it to almost be 90 degrees or close to it. And ours is pretty darn close. I have a piece of wire here just to kind of mimic it. And you guys can see where, let's raise it, let's get it close. You can see that we're a couple of degrees off, but also in that article it states that due to machining differences in the block, the cam, pads, valve height, that can all affect what you end up with. And right now we are at mid-lift. So, damn, of course my furnace would kick on while I'm talking, so you guys are going to hear it in the background. But, so according to what I read, if this angle is almost 90 degrees, we're pretty good. Now, it's not bad to have a sweep. Essentially, what you want is, what's going to happen is, as the rocker arm opens up, halfway through valve lift, it's actually going to go out. And then at fully open, the idea is that it should go back to where it was. So you're going to like hit an apex and then come down, right? We're not exactly doing that, but also our pattern isn't bad. Our sweep isn't super wide. And essentially also it states that any movement of the rocker arm isn't necessarily going to destroy valve train components. You just don't want to be 20 thousandths. You know, you don't want to be any less than that towards the edge of the valve. So if, you know, your sweep is going outward, you don't want to go anywhere near that 20 thou or under it. And we're definitely under it. Our sweep is in the center, so we're not too far off. I'm going to call it good. And I did check this with all three rocker arms. The comp cam, the correct Harlan Sharp, because we found out that the Harlan Sharps that we have are actually for Edelbrock heads, and it is very different. And I am on the quest to figure out where the difference lies. It has to be in the position of the valve. Somewhere it has to need a longer rocker arm. And the reason why I say that is because in that article too, it explains that the valve angle, the pushrod angle will affect, you know, those two heights will greatly affect what the rocker arm is going to do. The taller you go up, the closer it's going to go to the exhaust. The shorter you go, the further in towards the intake it's going to go. My rocker arm roller tip isn't actually on center. We're inboard a little bit to get an ideal sweep and pattern that doesn't push us over that edge. So I'm actually glad that I ordered a shorter push rod than intended. And yes, I did what I told you guys not to do. I just ordered push rods based off of the measurement that I had, and I figured shorter would be safer. And in this case, it definitely worked out. I made that I took that calculated risk. So what I'm gathered here is that we're about as good as we're going to get. These valves are definitely taller than the 0.100 that most people would run in an Olds head, from what I remember being told when my buddy Dave did the cylinder head work. So you got to keep in mind, in the same article, it talks about the angle of the valve, which actually, right here in this shot, you could tell that the valve angle is actually going like this. It's a 6-degree angle, and our cam angle is 45 degrees. So in theory, if our push rod is going straight, we're going 45. And in the article, almost verbatim, those two angles will converge. So it's going to go this way and this way. The taller we go up, the shorter of a rocker arm we will actually need. And this is where the design of the rocker arm, our push rod length, our valve stem height, all of that plays a critical role in all of these things. And again, I am learning as I am going here, because in the past I've been able to achieve good results and I never really had to dive too much into it. And this is the first time where I really saw something that I didn't like, so I had to research it. And yeah, I had a sweep that most people would call bad, but now reading that article, the sweep isn't a bad thing. It's a bad thing when you can't get that apex, which we don't exactly have a perfect apex, and I don't think we're going to be able to get it. And again, that is stated a couple of times in that article. You just don't want to go, again, towards the very edge of the exhaust side towards the exhaust side of the valve. So, you don't want to be rolling off the valve. You want to stay within a certain range, and our sweep isn't too bad. Now, our valve lift is also very, very close. The geometry will affect valve lift. So you could make the cam act smaller through the geometry. And that's, again, I'm quoting a lot of things from this article because I learned a lot. Based off the dial indicator, our lift is around 550, which this cam is a 550, 560 lift. I haven't checked the exhaust side, but I assume that we're only off by very little. I think it's a 555 lift cam, and based off my dial indicator, it's 550. There could be a couple discrepancies there, but I'm still going to call that good. We're good. I call that good. So, but we're not losing any lift that I would consider huge. But that's half a thou. It'd be 0.005. If we're getting 550, that'd be a half a thou that we're losing in lift, which, again, due to the design and due to what we have going on, we're not. I think we're just gonna have to live with it. Now, I could maybe try a different rocker arm that's out there, but I don't know what would be shorter. The ideal situation is where you have, a perfectly centered push rod on a perfectly centered cup, and your roller tip is centered, and your angles are correct. Regardless of what that pattern is, what you're after is the geometry, the angles. Again, it was a really good read. I learned a lot. And yeah, so it was a really interesting read. I think that I actually need a slightly shorter rocker arm than what I have, but I don't know what that would be unless, I start just randomly trying different rocker arms and measuring, but that would take a lot of time. So I would call this good. We're almost at 90 degrees. We're off by just a hair. I think that's as good as it's going to get. And I think that this will help some people out there. And I'm going to put that link in the description. So click on it, read it. It's really good. It's got a lot of really good information. And I think what we have is going to be good. We're not losing any big major lift. And we're not losing any major lift. So, that's the important thing. So take it with a grain of salt. I hope I explained it the best that I have, and I hope you guys have enjoyed my rocker arm saga. Now we have parts. We got our rocker arms. I actually got Howard's rocker arms. You know, we got our Trick Flow hardened push rods. They're the cheapest you're going to find. They're 120. They used to be like 90 something bucks, but they went up in price. We got our block plugs. I got the O2 sensor for my wideband in the car. And again, my buddy, I went and picked up the custom ordered intake gaskets that are set up and matched for these heads. So we are on the move here. You can hear my dog barking in the background. So we're on the move here. Hopefully from here I can button most of the rest of the stuff up. And then all I have to do is port the intake manifold to match the gaskets. And I am going to go further into the runners. It's a single plane, so it's a little bit easier than the dual plane. Which you guys saw me do with the RPM intake on the J-headed engine. I tapered those runners as much as I could because you're only going to get in there so far. So take this with a grain of salt. I am, you know, with every engine that I do or anything I redo, I learn more. And this is one subject that I really learned a lot on, and that article actually helped me a lot. So hope it helps you guys out. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Next time you see this, it's going to be a lot more complete. So we'll let you guys go. Share, like, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram as Copper Cutlass. We'll let you guys go.